Sairam, dear brothers and sisters, by the infinite grace, love and compassion of Bhagwan Baba, we are once again come for the second session actually for this nurturing spiritual growth. Over to you, William. Sairam.
Thank you. Sairam, everyone. First of all, good evening, and it's a real pleasure to be with you to continue this journey that we've started now. And just a few moments and minutes about myself here, just to introduce you. I first came to Swami in 1982. Had never been attracted to come to India, read a book called Man of Miracles, got introduced to Swami, felt I should come, and here I was. First time I ever saw him was sitting in the Purna Chandra I was, and they came in for the very last day of Dasara. And my journey continued. I was able to visit, about once a year after that until about the year 2000, when my wife and I actually moved to the ashram. Swami assigned us an apartment, and we lived in the ashram for about 16 years. I taught at the university for a while and so on. And then we returned here back to the USA, where I'm living, to be more with family in 2016. And so I wanted to share with you today just a perspective that I have found useful in my own spiritual growth, and that based on Swami's teachings, and wanted to bring you along on that. And that theme is about divine love. You know, the whole program, Nurturing Spiritual Growth, it's really being designed for all of us to move beyond just having conceptual knowledge about spirituality and actually have that very, very direct experience where the words really are like sign pointers on the way to the destination. The divine direct experience is really our arrival, in a sense, in that sense of an understanding, as the topic is today, of the nature of divinity and our true self-identity. And so I'd like to begin just with the statement that Swami made in 1968 when he was in Kenya about what his mission is, because this is really guiding the entire program here. He says, I've come to light the lamp of love in your heart to see that it shines day by day with added luster. I've not come to speak on behalf of any Dharma like the Hindu Dharma. I've not come on any mission of for a public sect or a creed or a cause. I haven't come to attract any followers for any doctrine. I have no plan to attract disciples, devotees to my fold or any fold. I've simply come to tell you of this universal, this object principle, this path of love, this obligation of love. And that has really struck me for a long time, is what we're all exploring from a multi-faith even perspective. And again, as Suresh had said, we're here in the second of the 6 topics that we'll be doing during the course. But we really wanted to start with, how are you doing? Now, just a short introduction. And Suresh, would you like to jump in here and just, you know, for 4 or 5 minutes, just to check in with people on how they did in the last 2 weeks?
Yes, thank you. So in the when we finished off last week, 2 weeks ago, we said that in the next 2 weeks, we practice one of the following. Now, why did we do this? Is because we were introducing the Buddhi Shakti, and Bhagavan mentioned 4 aspects of that. And one of them is that purity in thought, word, and deed, control of senses, because the term was yoga, and he said the greatest yoga is the control of senses. And the third one is Satyam, seek truth. So we said seek the higher purpose in everything that you do. And of course, Shraddha, which is steadfastness in faith. So Bhagavan said, if you keep on practicing these 4, then there is this element of Buddhi Shakti that will start developing. So we just want to ask you, in the last 2 weeks, how did you practice this? Did you practice one of that, or did you practice all 4 of that? What was your experience in practicing? We had a study circle last week, and some comments came, or some people made some suggestions last week. Maybe we would like to reiterate some of those things. So over to anyone who wants to share.
Okay, Sairam.
Sairam.
Sairam, I'm Mei-Ling from Malaysia. Okay, I would like to share actually in my group. Group 1 last week, we have gone through some feedback, and one brother said how he practiced the purity in thought, word, and deed is when some passing thoughts, some irritations, some people come to your life on that moment, how he practices, he always chants Om Sai Ram. Om Sai Ram until the mind is calm, and how then he pull back the calmness back to normal. And this is in his practice. Another brother said on the control of senses. Then he said he give example like food. He loves a certain food. When you have a certain food, he makes sure that you don't take so much. As you need to take what you require, that is how he control the food intake. This is one of method how he control senses. This is sharing. The third one brother said, Gayatri mantra. So when he come across a project, the project having some fallback, thing is not fulfilled and stop and having so much of pause and have some rejections, how he practices, he immediately stop and chant Gayatri mantra. So the Gayatri mantra is his way how he seek the truth, seek the highest purpose in everything he do, meaning and he will find out you don't bring in the judgmental coming to the picture, and instead of asking maybe the person need help, this is how he seek the truth, seek the higher purpose. So the other brother said eventually all these questions, the question 1, 2, 3, and 4, this 4 point is all related. It's all interrelated. So when you combine these 4, eventually what we're looking forward is oneness. The awareness level, the consciousness level is growing. Eventually, the ultimately goal is we achieve the oneness. This is collectively from the group 1. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Oh, it was a very nice summary just now. Thank you. And then we can have one or two. Brother Niranjan wanted to say something, I think.
Yes, Sai Ram, everyone. So thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I think when I look at the 4 things what we were asked or we were supposed to be practicing, one thing, the steadfast faith, that really caught my attention, and I thought that is, at least to me, that is the foundation for even everything else. Without that steadfast faith, it's really difficult to have the purity and unity of thought, word, and deed, and then even to control the senses. Now, when you talk about steadfast faith, faith in what? As long as we have faith in an external entity or external being, there is going to be separateness. There's going to be separation. And can we really have that thought, the unity and purity of thought, word, and deed, when you have that faith in an external entity? So the more we think that, Swami is outside, Swami is an excellent entity, that is not, I don't think we can really achieve. We can always have this, would have this conversation or dilemma as, what do I do? What do I do? But the more we think that Swami is within us, or that the self is Swami, then there is no choice. It's just that basically whatever that being wills happens, and that is in that foundational faith, then everything becomes, the thought, word, and deed is united, and it is pure because it's coming from the very fundamental truth that we are divine. And then the senses are also under control because there is only one entity that is in control, or that the self is in control of whatever we interact, whatever we respond to the situations in life. And what was the other one?
Steadfast faith. Seek truth, seek the higher purpose.
Truth. Yeah, exactly. So when I say steadfast faith, we also have to understand where are we keeping our faith on? Is it, as I said, is outside? So the truth is, we are that self. That self is within us, and that self is the Atma, the Sai. So I think once we practice, once we have that a better understanding about steadfast faith in the truth or the self, then everything will fall in, everything will fall in place, and then the outlook in our life would change. We would do the same thing, but the outlook and the perspective with we conduct ourselves would be different and more fitting to our true self.
Yeah. Thank you, Niranjan. Very nice insight. That's a very good insight. Yeah.
Saram, Suresh, I think, and to everyone, we'll have a good, at least 25 minutes in some subgroups where we can actually continue this conversation in smaller groups as we go along. So thank you very much for everyone who just shared, and for everyone else having done whatever Swami has called you to do during this last couple of weeks. See, just to kind of move us into today's topic, we'd like to have, which is really the tradition now for this program, is to have a silent sitting to begin, where we listen to some quotes from different faiths about the theme of today's presentation.
Sit comfortably and relax or close your eyes and move into a peaceful state of inner reflection. Focus on your breath. Just notice it without trying to change it. Allow your breath to become deeper naturally without force. With each breath, exhale any tension or busy thoughts. Feel yourself relaxing more and more, your mind becoming more still. Continue breathing like this as the inspirational readings are read out. And allow any memories, insights, or images to naturally come into your awareness. In Hindu scriptures, we read, "This Supreme Lord who pervades all existence, the true self of all creatures, may be realized through undivided love." A Hebrew proverb states, "Only love gives us the taste of eternity." Augustine, an early Christian theologian, wrote, "God's nature is love, and by loving God, the human being can ultimately participate in divine love, in love itself." Confucius advised, "Love others as you love yourself. Who chooses not to dwell in love? Has he any wisdom?" Buddha declared, "We will develop love. We will practice it. We will make it both a way and a basis." The Muslim poet Rumi declared, "Be certain, in the religion of love, there are no believers or unbelievers. Love embraces all. Reason is powerless in the expression of love." What theme or message from these quotes most resonate within you? How does that theme relate to how you can nurture your spiritual growth?
You know, I remember when the very first day that I ever spent at Prasanthi Nilayam, and I saw the Sarvadharma symbol, that sense of having the multiple faiths perspectives, and what Swami said in his Kenya discourse has always inspired me. It actually inspired me to even go back to my own heritage and discover a much deeper presence from that, and how Swami brings alive the essence of all of this. So thank you for sharing with me on that. I'm going to come back to the slides. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. And as Sai Baba sums up here for us, that spirituality is nothing but the blossoming of love. It is love alone that unites all of mankind into one. And especially in my first decade or so, I came to Swami first time in 1982, as I mentioned, and I learned so much about different aspects of the spiritual growth. The 9 forms of worship, where, especially for me, picking out not just serving the divine, but how to have friendship with God was a growing point for me. The 9-point code of conduct, the stages of awareness, the different paths to union, the 4 goals of life, the 5 human values. And it was amazing that in trying to follow this and finding what really resonates with me, I remember one time when Swami was giving a discourse, he said, people think that spirituality is so difficult, but really it's no more difficult. And he dropped his hanky like that. And that prompted me to say, well, what is that simplicity? What is that thing that makes it feel easy? What is the essence maybe that underscores all of this? And that's what I began to search for. And so this is Sanjay Mahalingam. He was actually one of my students when I taught at the university. And here he's talking about his last ever interview with Swami. He went through all the schools there and everything and had some close encounters. And this was Swami coming back from Darshan one morning.
That guided me on my inner journey. On another occasion, around March 2009, Swami finished Darshan, and Swami came back to the interview room. I was there, another devotee was there. And Swami looked at me, and Swami looked very forlorn and very sad. And he said, as I am coming for darshan and as I am moving in the Kulwant hall, all these people's heads are also turning. I am going like this and they're also going like this. Swami showed it through gestures. And then said, after so many years, they are still thinking that there is something here, pointing to himself. Swami said, there is something here that is not there. So Swami said, there is something here that is not there. So they are still thinking, that there is some divinity here which is not already present in them. And Swami said, he just waved his hand, and it was a shocking moment for me. It was one of the last interviews I had. In fact, the last time Swami spoke to me physically was April 2009.
And that has always touched me. It has stayed with me in my heart. What is it that may keep us stuck into, we know about Swami, we hear what he says, but we haven't yet had that experience inside. And so the question of what does it really take to know God? What is the nature of that divinity? And Swami says, everyone utters the word God, but how many really seek to know? For understanding anything, subjective experience is essential. That subjective experience is essential. And it brings up, what that difference between knowing about something and knowing it directly that Swami was actually commenting to. And one of the ways I look at this is like through skydiving, for example. I mean, a person can become the greatest expert on skydiving, knowing wind dynamics and aerodynamics and how to pack a chute and all those kinds of things. But until the person has actually jumped out of an airplane, do they really know what skydiving is like and what it's about? And that's what we're looking for in this program for all of us. I mean, even those who are making presentations, we're on this journey with you. And we do get some extra guidance, even from some of the other spiritual classics. For example, like the Cloud of Unknowing, which is a 13th century Christian classic, says God cannot be known by reason, but he can be loved and chosen by the true loving will of your heart. And the Mundaka Upanishad says, the self is the source of love and may be known through love, but cannot be known through thought, which is giving us the sense that understanding with reason and thought, it's not the right tool for knowing God. There's a more powerful tool, which is love, and chosen through our hearts. And that's what we'll be exploring here for the rest of this presentation here today. So it starts with Swami saying God is love, and full of love, the embodiment of love, the splendor of love. God is where love is. Love expresses sympathy and charity and reverence. And it brings up a question I'd love you to put into the chat, if you would. What are some other expressions of love that we can recognize its presence, whether that might be gratitude, it might be deep inner peace? Would you put into chat any of the other expressions of love that help us recognize when that sense of love is really present in our lives? Let me give you kind of a minute to put some things in if you wish.
We got a response. This is random act of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Kindness. Smile.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Give up duality. Empathy.
Empathy, good. Give up duality.
Going an extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you. Any more right now?
I think the smile is really caught my attention. Yeah. Caring, be kind, viewing life with equanimity, motherhood, bliss, awareness.
One thing, thank you. One thing I'm kind of hearing here also is that a deeper understanding of what this divine love is about is that it's not a feeling so much as a way of being. It's not an emotion. We have our emotions, but it's this love that he's talking about is more of like the very essence of, he says, that is the essence of God is love. And so the way of exploring some of this a little bit further is to see the other half of what he says. He says, God, love is God, so live in love. Love, love, become what you truly are, the embodiment of love. So he's saying God is the embodiment of love and you are the embodiment of love. And that's a lot to wrap yourself around. You know, that's exactly what Sanjay's talk was about, is how do we have that true experience? And I think just the beginning analogy, you know, if you look at these two roses, on the right, I mean, on the left, obviously, it's a much larger bush, much more flowers than on the right. But if you looked at the DNA of the bush on the left and the buds and everything coming out on the right, the DNA would be exactly the same. It's the one on the right is just as much rose bushy, just not in the quantity, but the essence of it is the same. And I think that's the sense of what that love is all about. And there's a Christian mystic from the last century. He was actually a Jesuit, a Christian priest, and a evolutionary paleontologist. But he said, you know, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And Swami has said much the same in various discourses and interviews. And so that's where we're kind of carrying forward here. And so, you know, if we look at, again, from the perspective, God is love, who lives in love, lives in God, and God in him. Swami gives us a much clearer definition of what this divine love is all about, how it is even different from what we might call love in a worldly sense. First of all, he says, love gives and never receives, and therefore it's selfless. He says it's also fearless. And finally, it's changeless, it's unconditional. You know, that fearless is that when you're feeling that connection of love, there's no fear because there may not even be a sense of separateness. There's a sense of oneness there. And in that changeless, the unconditional, we start to explore here, and we'll go deeper into it. What is the difference between conditional love and unconditional love that he's talking about? The changeless love, it doesn't turn on and off like a faucet. And the beginning point of that is to just sit and think about is when we have situations in our life when maybe we feel sad or angry or excited or even peaceful, we often attribute it to the conditions around us. That when this condition is there, this person acts a certain way, oh, we feel joyful. But if they act a different way, if the condition changes, oh, now we're not joyful anymore, we're sad. So the conditional really means we think that what we're feeling is coming from the conditions outside of us, whereas the unconditional is generated from the inside, irrespective of what we're facing in life. And again, that's a real deep learning point from a point of experience. And so just from what we've said so far, just take a moment and just write down any thoughts or kind of themes you're seeing about what are the implications of God is love and love is God for your spiritual growth. This is one of the questions that you'll have a chance to talk more about when we go into small breakout groups in about 20 minutes or so. So just take a few moments to write down any thoughts that you have about what are the implications of what's been said just now. God is the embodiment of love. We are the embodiments of love. That love is selfless, fearless, and changeless. And again, you'll have your chance to both share your experiences and also really learn and listen to others a little bit later on in this program. So that brings us to the question of, well, what gets in the way? You know, Swami says, you are of the same nature as the Atma, the supreme power. But like the prince who has fallen into a den of robbers and is growing up there, the Atma has not recognized its true identity. That is all. And when you unpack that, he's in a sense saying, you are already a rose bush. You don't have to do anything to become a rose bush, to become divine. All it is a matter of awakening, not achieving something that's not there. It's just awakening to what already is there. And that's what he was looking for or talking about in that darshan. People who they already know that is there. There is the same thing in them that is in Swami. But Swami goes on to say, by obsession with the separateness of the individual, one fails to see his cosmic essence. So forget the ego in you and recognize your spiritual essence. Forgetting the ego may seem really hard. It is for me. But I really love what Rumi said as a path forward as well, about what it means to forget the ego. He says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you've built against it. And so the question becomes, what are some of those inner barriers that might actually block our direct experience of divine love? Would anyone like to just share their first thoughts? What are some of those barriers that might block that, much like the clouds block the sun? And if once the clouds have been parted and removed, the sun that's already there just naturally then shines through. Anybody have some thoughts to share on that? You can raise your hand or just turn on your mic and speak, either one. Naranjan, if you can see if anyone has their hands raised.
Yes. Yeah, Brother James from Malaysia.
Thank you.
I think forgetting the ego and then what gets the way, I think we are human and we have limited ability or capabilities. So that also makes us like, can we be fearless, you know? Like sometimes friends, you know, let's say they're critical illness which we can't help. Or some friend, they need a lot of money to help and then we don't have money to help. So these also some of the blockages that we face. But the only thing like we can do is sometimes pray and chant for them. That is a very limited thing we can do. So we are not super, or we are not divine. So I think that also is a big obstacle. Sometimes we have to be very careful. Salam.
Good. Well said.
Sairam.
Yes.
Fish from Malaysia. Inner barrier that blocks our direct experience of divine love is Maya itself, illusion. And all our mind's negative tendencies. Sairam.
Sairam. And the question that we'll also talk further about, how is it that Maya has such a hold on us? What makes it more difficult to pierce through Maya?
It's an attachment.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Ignorance that we identify ourselves with the body and mind.
So there are many that we might find. There are four that I'd like to highlight today, and then to go more deeply into what they feel like and how to start recognizing them in ourselves, so that just like clouds, the warm sun can just melt the clouds away and the sun can truly shine through. So the first one, as you were just saying, our physical senses lead us to feel separate from others. I'm going to just list them now, then we'll go back through them in more detail. The second is that we believe that the external conditions cause our inner experience, that we think that what we have to do to have a better experience is control the world around us to get those conditions to line up the way we want them to. Those were our attachments, as someone just said. We judge everything by what we like and dislike and what we want or don't want. So we're constantly scanning for, is this okay for me? Is this okay for me or not? And we react to conditions rather than just nurturing the inner experience that we desire to have. And when we actually can let these kinds of barriers go, the more we let them go, the more we follow how Swami says, well, have a ceiling on desires. All of a sudden we start releasing that attachment to having the external conditions be changed in order for us to have a good experience inside. When we let these go, then we can realize the sun that's always been shining, that who we really are as divine spirit, naturally we have that experience of it, it shines. And as Brother Suresh had pointed out, these match up nicely to the 5 sheaths. And it says that the body and sense awareness leads us to feel separate. And the mental sheaths, the manas, which is really the dualistic mind, the dualistic thinking that we have that divides things into yes, no, right or wrong, and so on. The second and third are light from that sheath. And even the wisdom sheath, the buddhi, can still need some cleaning up, so to speak, where we're still reacting to conditions and being reactive rather than proactive in nurturing those experiences that we want to generate and share with others. And so, again, this whole thing is a journey from the sense of conditional love, where we can turn it on and off like a faucet, to the unconditional love, where no matter what the condition is, we can still feel that sense of love. Let's go into that in more detail. So here's an exercise I'd like you to do. Just think for a moment. How does my eyesight give me an experience of separateness? For example, you can look at all the different individuals who are on this call, and each one of them looks like they're in a separate box, a different face, and so on. So of course we're all separate. That's the illusion that the eyes will give us. What about the ears? What does our hearing give us that makes it feel separate? Well, everyone has a different sound of their voice, and so it feels separate. We know that if we run into a tree, it may hurt because that tree is separate from us and could hurt this body. So there's so much in which our senses actually contribute to that sense of being captured by Maya. But the senses really have a role which is helping us to navigate the world of separateness, navigate this world well. It's very nice to know, stop at the red light and go only when it's green for safety. But love is what connects us rather than feeling separate. It's that sense of love where we feel a certain connection or even oneness with someone or something. Now, here's a second one, the situations that make you feel. Think of what makes you happy. What conditions do you feel most easily happy in? And what other conditions might you feel irritated? And what other conditions might you feel afraid or anxious? What's an example for you? Now notice the way I've asked the question is more the way that we sometimes think, because we have this feeling that this is what makes me feel what I'm feeling. This condition makes me feel happy. This condition makes me feel irritated. This makes me feel sad, and so on. And it is that tendency to think that way is really where we're giving away our power to experience life as we are taught to experience by Swami. We're giving that power over to conditions and people and conditions around us, rather than reclaiming that power over our own inner experience, which we'll get to in a second. So, anyone have any comments just about these two? Okay, I'll carry on.
Yeah, William, sorry.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Yes.
I think just now you mentioned like, no, especially when you're caught in situation when people make you angry. So most people will react, or some will even respond. But I think respond is quite okay. The other one is, I think, more like being patient and tolerance. Like you have to let the cloud move away, you know, which is a lot of tolerance, a lot of patience.
Yes. Good. It is. I mean, everything that we're sharing today is like being in the gymnasium. It's a muscle that we can develop. We can become healthier spiritually by practicing these, and it takes time. Or it's like learning to play a piano or a guitar. It will take time to become, you know, an accomplished player, if you will. And that requires what you just said: a patience, a persistence, in a sense, a compassion towards yourself. Because often we put these expectations on ourselves of, oh, I should be better at this, and what's wrong with me, and so on. It will really help us kind of navigate even ourselves with compassion as well. Okay, the third, now, what is it? Let's just think of it for today. You're pretty close to 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening, right in there. So what have you liked or disliked about your day? Or what were some things that you wanted to have happen and some things you didn't want to have happen? You might even be listening to me and saying, well, there's some things I like what he's saying and some things I dislike what he's saying. So just what are different thoughts that you've had during the day about things you've liked, disliked, what you want, what you don't want? And begin to notice how that runs a lot of your life, you know, myself included. If I really like something, I want to work to make it happen. If I dislike something, I want to see if I can prevent it. Same thing of what I want. And this is where our attachments come in. We attach for what we want. If we're attached to what we don't want, well, if we are starting to get what we don't want, we start to feel bad. That kind of tendency, again, is part of what is one of the clouds. And so we judge everything about what we like, dislike, or want or don't want. And just notice when you think or speak in these kinds of words. And to break through, you can empathize with other viewpoints through love. Just for example, when my wife and I were having a discussion about how I was taking care of my health. And I felt I was doing just fine. And she said, no, you should be doing these things. And we were having a disagreement about all that until I had this moment of thinking, and I said to her, I appreciate your intention for my well-being. I appreciate you just wanting to be the healthiest I can be. I appreciate you for that. That shifted me and then shifted the entire conversation. Rather than using the dualistic things of what I like, what I don't want, and so on, but just to recognize the good intention that she had. It's that kind of what I mean by empathize with other viewpoints as a practice of love. And the fourth, here's an exercise I'd like you to do when you're sitting there here. First of all, think of a person that you may be having some difficult getting along with, some difficulty. It could be someone at work, it could be someone in your family or extended family, it could be a friend. Just kind of think of a person for a moment there, and then put that aside. I just want to have that as a bookmark. Now, in your own mind's eye, bring alive a moment that you've had in your life. Could have been holding a newborn baby, it could be playing with a puppy, but where you just felt this overwhelming sense of connection or love, caring, gratitude, compassion, stillness, great inner peace. What's just even a moment you've had in your life that you can recall, and notice what your experience is in that moment. That sense of connection, that sense of almost a mutual identity. What happens for them happens for you as well. You might be speechless even. Maybe you don't have any words for it. And just hold and just appreciate that experience that you're having there. And then let that scene disappear, but still hold that experience in your heart. And bring that other person that you named earlier into the circle, into the space, but still keep holding the same experience you just had with the baby or the puppy or the nature walk or whatever that was. Just surround that person with that kind of experience that you're having unconditionally, no matter what they have said, what they've done, whatever. That's the shift of what it means to not be reactive to the situation conditionally, but simply to be love and radiate the love unconditionally, no matter what is in front of you. Now, that is a serious exercise in the spiritual gym. And yet, that is what the sense of unconditional love really is about. It's about reclaiming that I am the sun, I am not the clouds. And so, notice how you can feel love in one situation and then hold that with a more difficult situation. Hold that other situation in the same love light as you would that of something that triggers you naturally to feel that love. Use those triggers as an exercise of being able to feel that light, and then shine it like a flashlight. Turn it and shine it into something else and see if you can hold that same experience. Now, here's our second note taking, is just what holds you back from knowing your true self is divine love? What would you say from all that we've had this discussion? What's one of the things that holds you back from knowing that true self is being divine love? Any of these patterns or other patterns that may be for you? So what is the way forward from here? Somebody says the best way to love God is to love all and serve all. Your heart must be filled with compassion. All your activities should be suffused with love. There's no strength superior to love. Everything we've been talking about here, pathway. And as the Buddha said, we can radiate boundless love towards the entire world, unhindered and without ill will. And so I'd like to just play a short video with Mother Teresa. This was when she was accepting the Nobel Prize. It was a perfect example. Thank you, Suresh, by the way, for sending this, of what we're talking about here. Whoops. It's not playing, but I'll tell you what she's had to say. That she was saying that while she felt personally unworthy, when she had lifted a child who was deeply hungry and was carrying her back, she said the child was so hungry, I fed her a piece of bread, I gave her a piece of bread, but she was only eating it crumb by crumb. And Mother Teresa says, well, no, eat. And she says, the girl said, I'm afraid to eat because I'm afraid that after I eat, I'll still be hungry, or I'll get hungry again. And this was the condition. But what she saw, Mother Teresa saw in this child, is another expression of the divine. And that her entire work in the world was seeing the Christ in every person, seeing the divinity in every person, and gave her life towards that in a way that never had her hand out, just like Swami, never solicited for funds or things like that. She said, what do you think? God is bankrupt? And she lived in that true sense of trust and faith that Niranjan was talking about earlier. And so really, what waits for us on this journey? Somebody says, by means of love, one can approach God and stay in his presence, for God is love. And when you live in love, you're living in God. And when you become transmuted into love, the Lord, who is the embodiment of love, will reveal himself to you, awakening your higher consciousness in the flood of universal love. And so the question really for you is this third is, as you grow in knowing yourself as an embodiment of love, how would your life change? This will be the third discussion question that we can take into the breakouts in just a moment here. So just take 1 minute or so to write what you have on this question.
We are happy all the time.
Excuse me?
We are happy.
Ah, okay, we're happy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. There are many different signs of your life changing, of your growing. So this is the time when we could take your answers into smaller groups, into Zoom groups. And there the facilitators have these 3 questions. The middle question, number 2, what holds you back could be a further discussion of any blockages that are like clouds. But what are the implications of all this? As you grow in this, how would your life change? And so I'm going to give this over to Emma, I believe, who you break people into breakout groups.
Yes, into 8 groups.
And give everyone about 20 minutes. We may stretch it a few minutes more, but about 20 minutes once they get into the rooms.
Okay, can I open the rooms now?
Yes, you can open the rooms now. Perfectly.
20 minutes, right? Okay, I think everyone has been on.
Great, thank you. So
Seems like everyone, we are all having a good discussion, so that's a good sign. It's interaction. That's all what makes this program much better, more interactive, and more meaningful. So let's hear from the participants or the group leaders or the facilitators as to what your summary or what your discussion in your respective groups are. Since Brother Ashok has already started, we start hearing you sharing. Would you like to go first?
Yes, Saidam, I think we got carried away with a lot of other things, and we were talking about the first question, and we were well engaged into the second question. And one of the points that, we were talking a lot about Swami's teachings, but if I may just, if you all forgive me, just allow me, I was just saying that, this idea of what is love, we talk a lot about love and we use that word a lot. I just don't know if we understand what that means. One of the sisters was talking about seeking love as a child, seeking love as a partner, seeking love as a spouse, seeking love from children. And that all seemed to be looking outwards to seek love. And because that's how we've been taught to define love. We raise the question, is love an emotion or is it an inner state of being? And I think, unless and until we answer those questions, then we have difficulties even knowing what love is, because the world has taught us love is something else. When we were dealing with the second question, someone very fairly raised the point that, well, it's very difficult to know because we're so identified with our body-mind complex that we sometimes don't know what love is. And what we think is we want our world in the foot where that illusion is perpetuated. And then we want to love, a foot in a temple where we are beginning to taught different lessons of what love is. So I would just like to, we never got to the third question, I'm sorry. But, one thing I would simply say, if I may, is in the 5 human values, they have what we call sub-values, situational values. And for me personally, for what it's worth, I've always found it's those situational values which best explain what love is, because love is not an emotion. Love is not an outward feeling. Love is love is what is born from within you and manifests itself. And that is manifestation, is compassion, it's devotion, it's empathy, it's forgiveness, it's generosity, it's purity, it's patience. So I'd just like to stop here because of time, but to just make the point that, love is something that springs forth from within you. And we really need to purify our minds, our hearts, our intellects, to still our minds, to tap that fountain of love within us, because everything is external otherwise, and that is not love to us. Sarah.
Thank you, brother. That was really wonderful. Thank you. If I may just quickly say something about what Brother Ashok said about the love we experience from people around us, and it may not be complete, but it's still part of that. It is still an expression of that divine love, but it's still, it has conditions. So, but at the bottom line, it's still love, and the Vedantic parlance, it says like neti, which is it's not just this, not just this. So, but we know that is love, but there is more to it. So that's something we can always a perspective to look at things. Yes, Brother Manoj, please go ahead.
Sairam. So we came to know, the group member said that love is an energy, it's a pure energy. It's a higher consciousness. And it is covered with because we are living in the world, so it's covered by the color of our agitation, all the vasanas. And they said that if we practice silence, maybe we will try to overcome all these tendencies and will come in peace, and that's what where love can be experienced. And the second was that the question which we discussed in detail was the second question: what holds you back from knowing your true self as divine? So initially we thought that is the lack of knowledge that we are divine, and so if the knowledge can bring us to know that we are divine and we are divine love. But then we discussed further, and we found that it is our vasanas, our impressions, which makes us not realize that what we are. Because there are times when people tell us, the leaders, Swami has told us so many times, you are divine love, and everything. So that knowledge is there, but still we don't realize it. And because the mind has tendencies and vasanas from previous births, and they always push us towards that side. So I think the best part is that it is steady path towards God, where we can remove our vasanas and we can move it in a right direction. Because even for Lord Buddha also, he took so many births to get the nirvana. But it's a spiritual journey we are moving, and this is why these are our vasanas, the main thing which takes us away from our knowing that we are God, and we have to work towards it. And the third one, as you grow in knowing yourself as the embodiment of love, how would your life change? Because life changes, because life becomes less complicated. We are always happy. We overcome criticism, and a lot of good things happen. So, and we are always peaceful. So these are the things which our group discussed in 20 minutes. So we just came earlier, so this is what we could share side.
Thank you, Brother Manoj. That was wonderful. I really like how you said that the impressions and how it is true. And, because we tend to invest in those things so that we forget our real investment.
Yeah, because one sister said that, see, a lot of people in the world, they think that enjoyment, and we live one life, so why should we go for all this spiritual journey and everything? Though they have been told that you cannot get enjoyment. So then we discussed about there's something called Shamshan Virakti, because when people go to funeral pyre and then say, though this word is not of any sense, but the moment they leave that place, again the word covers them. Saira.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Sairam?
F7. I would
Yes,
like my team members to answer, they have volunteered to answer. So we have Brother Venkat answering question 1.
Okay. Yeah, so my view on God is love and love is God is, love is something, like in our lives, to what Brother Ashok said, we have no choice but to go out, on every, because we have to live our lives every day. And you can only do that using your 5 senses, and you're forced to go out. And yes, you may get moments where you can meditate or you can try to go in, but by embracing this discipline of love, this actually connects everything you try to do into one path, rather than trying to get distracted away into the outward going, needs of our lives. And if you start doing everything out of love, it makes you more collected, more composed, and you maintain a thread of your journey rather than trying to, go off in different tangents all the time, and then figuring out, okay, I went in the wrong direction for a moment, right? But if you start doing everything out of love, like Brother William also mentioned in his presentation, whether it is good or bad, but you do out of love, right? Then you're changing the whole approach to your, to what you're trying to aspire to know yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sister Lata for question 2.
Yeah, Sairam. I think like what Sister Chandrika or Brother Venkat said, it's the mind. The mind, it controls everything. So it's like, how are you going to purify your mind? So what I feel is the mind and the ego is connected. So once we can clear this, purify this, then there is no more of the other things coming in, our thoughts. We can have the bliss. Like, for example, the 9 code of conduct of Baba. I mean, everything we can follow, but the ill, speaking of others, need not even utter a word. But even if the mind, there's a wrong thought of, of others, the ill thought itself there is no divinity in that. So there's no purification. So actually the whole problem here is with the mind. And further, I think Brother Venkat gave an example on Naraya Seva. Maybe Brother Venkat, you want to explain further on that?
Yeah, no, so we tend to, obviously, Swami has given us so many instruments, so many ways to, or duties to do, like seva or bhajan or prayers, all this stuff that, we are to do. For example, if I take the seva, we go with a limited amount of whatever stuff we want to give out, right? And it's always the case, I'm talking about Hong Kong and my experience here, we kind of count the street sleepers, how many we think are there in each location, and we kind of prepare for that and go. And you go to the first stop, you either see a lot more or you see a lot less, and then your mind starts acting up, saying, okay, now I'm going to run out of food. What should I do? Or like, oh, now I'm going to have a lot of food remaining with me. It's going to go waste. What I'm going to do? In that process, we actually lose the concept of you're actually serving someone. Instead, if you start enjoying that moment, when you're handing out stuff and you look into the eye of the needful person, what really comes out is love. Right? But instead, your mind is clouding you, saying like, okay, what about how many people are here? Like, am I giving enough? Like, how it plays up. So at the end, our job is to just go deliver, right? And you will find the last guy for the last packet you have in hand. And
Sairam, just to respect time, thank you so much for your sharing. It's so beautiful. It's very heartfelt and sincere. Mm-hmm. Just to respect everyone's time. For some people it's too late. Some people it's too early. So just to respect everyone's time, if you can limit your sharing to a minute, I would greatly appreciate it. Group F7, do you have anything else to share? Are you?
It's only question 3.
Okay.
Knowing that you're an embodiment of love, how would my life change? I think I would concentrate on spiritual nurturing, the body, of the mind, and of relationships. And as time does not permit, I don't think I want to elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Sairam, group 4.
Sairam, sister.
Sairam. We had a very good discussion, and one of the sisters said, let me, this is answering question number 2. And the most challenging part was what holds you back was, she said, for us, traditional people growing up in traditional families, holding on to Swami and tradition and God and faith and all that came in very easy because we took our parents' word for granted, but not with today's teenage children. She said, how do you develop faith in a youngster who has not met Swami? And we say that Swami lives in the heart. So how do we develop faith in them? Because they will believe you being parent, they trust your word for that. So they have lots of challenges, and this that divinity thing doesn't come in the youngsters. these days, whereas we parents took it for granted. And another one of the, that sister said that when it comes to what holds you back, it was consider each moment of our life, the dharmic role that we do as teachers, as parents, as wives or husbands. So prioritize our work and serve God. So teachings of Swami helps in different roles. And the answer always comes from heart. So there is no guilt, there is no heaviness in the heart. So when the answer comes from the heart. So balancing was a good way. And one more sister said, we're all practicing, trying to practice that rules us from the heart. So when it comes to real life challenges, facing family situations and challenges in the family, so this still goes haywire here and there, but we're all trying in our way. So Saira.
Thank you, sister. That's a very heartfelt and real experience sharing and real sharing, honest sharing. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and from your discussions. Who would like to go next?
Sairam, due to time constraint, I will just give very briefly, and the rest I will summarize and submit. Okay, the first question, what are the implications of God is love? Love is God. I think this would require us to live his message, to love all, serve all, and then to learn to see God in others and to nurture that sense of oneness in all. And then question 2, what holds you back from knowing your true self or as divine love? So usually I think it's our physical senses that hold us back. We see things, the worldly things external, and these things are sometimes very attractive, and they become barriers for us, to know ourselves as our true self as divine love. So also the inability to feel love, compassion, understanding, and all that, these also prevent us from knowing our true self as divine love. And for question 3, as you grow in knowing yourself as an embodiment of love, how would your life change? And our group members gave quite a few very good answers, but I will have to summarize them later. So I will just give briefly on one here, which says, self-transformation will start to take place. And I will become a better person. I will want to be an exemplary Sai devotee so that others can see the Sai in me and be inspired to follow suit. And I will be very mindful of what I think, say, and do. As Swami has said, be good, do good, see good. So if we can follow this, I think it will be very good for our spiritual progress. And also about conceptual knowledge, I think we have to translate that into practice so that they become experiential, so that we can experience the divine. Yeah, this is all. Thank you. The rest I will submit. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. This is so beautiful. I love the way you said, Swami not only said, do good, be good, see good. He also said, this is the way to God. And so beautiful, nicely summarized. And that was a nice punchline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Niranjan, how are we doing for time at this point?
I think we can still go for a couple of more minutes.
Okay.
Okay, who's maybe we'll hear from a couple of other groups.
Yeah, F6. Yeah, the first question was, of course, many ideas came. I'll just give you in 2-line reply. That adhere to truth, goodness, and seeing beauty everywhere. So Satyam Shivam Sundaram, that is like God is love, love is God. What are the obstacles comes why we cannot realize that we are divine? That is clutter of mind with our so much attachment, desires, and all those things are the obstacles that we cannot understand. We just come as obstacles to make us realize that we are divine. And if we chant Gayatri Mantra, Nam Smaran, all those things, then we can come out of it. And if we don't judge others, if we work at the level of our heart, not at the level of our head, that is also one way to get closer to God. And how we feel when we realize, the third one, how do you life changes? So that is, we feel much lighter, much happy, much cheerful, less complicated. And the best sign is we will be always smiling. And even if someone is invoking us to be angry, we will take it lightly and don't get angry at that moment, also seeing God in that person also. Yeah, Saira.
Yep. In other words, we'll be our true self.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes,
Thank you, sister. Thank you. Nicely summarized. We'll go one more group. We have time for one more group. Okay, so maybe we can get the summary from in the WhatsApp groups, and you all can share with all of us. I want to leave you with two thoughts, for contemplation. One is, does love integrate us or does love isolate us? So think about that. And the other one is, think about love and love as the foundation, and contemplate on the four human values: Sathya, Dharma, Shanti, and Prema, and Ahimsa. And as love as a foundation, how you would understand, what is your perspective, or what is your understanding of these values as love as the foundation? With that, I would like to return control to Brother William.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of sum up a couple of things by talking about my first interview with Swami, with my wife, back in about 1999. And I asked him a question that I had been posing and wondering about. I asked him, I said, Swami, we talk about the five sheaths, and you have body, senses, you have manas, you have buddhi, you have the atma, therefore. So it sounds like the atma is really closest to the buddhi experience, the unitive mind, if you will, rather than dualistic mind. I said, but you also talk about God lives in your heart. Does that mean that the buddhi is the heart, the spiritual heart? And he said, yes. And so when we talk about, I think Girijah was talking about the heart a moment ago, that and the other things, that the mind can give us thoughts about and understanding about and knowledge about. Heart that is the tool for having the actual experience. And by the heart, it means, like Swami says, he says, love is my form, truth is my breath, no reason for love, no season for love. So no reason, no season means unconditional. It doesn't depend on the season or the reason. It's just you shining your heart light. And whenever we have, this is the thing that I think has helped me a lot, realizing that any time we have an experience of unconditional love, even if it's only for 2 seconds, we are experiencing our divinity directly. We are experiencing our godness directly. We're experiencing God directly. You're experiencing Swami directly. The beingness of love is the tool. If we're trying to use the mind to understand God, it's like using a screwdriver to try to hammer a nail. But when we bring the mind into the heart and integrate them, the heart in the buddhi, the heart then gives us the experience itself. And it is anytime we have that unconditional selfless love, whether it's in seva, whether it's in worship, and so on. And there's, I know that, when the last thing, just as a little practice like Niranjan was doing, I love that bhajan, I am God, I am God, I am no different from God. But that sometimes my ego can get in the way with that, and it feels pretty difficult. But if I take the equation, God is love, love is God, I can sing that bhajan with, I am love, I am love, I am no different from love. And all of a sudden I feel like I've got a pathway to have that experience itself right there. And so I wanted to leave that with you, and that finally, that in the sense of the barriers, my experience is that just becoming aware of these barriers and holding those barriers, not in a critical mind, like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that way, but wrap that in love. If you feel frustrated with or discouraged, hold that in love. We don't have to suppress it as an emotion, but when we hold that in this beingness of love, as someone else had talked about, that will naturally, that is the wisdom of divinity bringing out those berries and basically heating them up till they disappear, the clouds. And so it's a natural, organic thing that we can trust in our growth. And it takes repetition, it takes perseverance, it takes dedication, it takes all 5 Ds. And yet it happens. And it's a journey that's actually delightful, not even being at the destination, but even being on the pathway itself becomes a delight. So with that, I wanted to leave you with kind of a short assignment, as we always do at the very end here. And that is, there it is. So I'd like you to become aware of moments when you treat yourself and others with conditional regard versus unconditional love. And what will you do in the coming 2 weeks to begin shifting towards that unconditional, that greater sense of love? And then notice how that begins to express itself in your day-to-day life just naturally. It will start to grow as your natural response. So I'd like you to just become aware of that and kind of watch your experiences. You don't have to force them, but just as you watch them, watch it grow. So in 2 weeks, we'll check back in with you and see where you are. Suresh, would you like to say anything in closing here?
No, William, thank you. And it was really, really, I hope, very experiential. This is a very important lesson in the whole series because we are moving from conditional to unconditional. And it's a very important, and the deconstructing part of it, in which all the 4 steps was laid out. If we practice it and sensitize ourselves, we will be experiencing more of the unconditional love. That is what spirituality has promised us. So with these few words, we hope to see all of you again in the next 2 weeks. Next week, of course, we'll have our own zonal satsang. We will also incorporate some of these discussions there, and then we'll come back again in 2 weeks' time. We thank everybody with these few words. Saira.